All right. Hi, and welcome back to Tome Travelers. We are going to go ahead and get into the second part of our first show, which is the character creation for Babylon 5. Essentially, what's going to happen next is I am going to walk my wife Roxy through the character creation process for Babylon 5. Now, this is a D20 game, so...
Yeah, it's based off D&D 3.
Yep, so D20 system from that era where it had the white and red marquee little button on the front of each of the books. A lot of this is going to sound familiar if you've ever made a character for some of the D&D games out there. But so the first thing that we're going to go ahead and do, just because this is a good point to start off at, is we're going to go ahead and roll stats. Now, because this is a D20 system, it's got your standard stats, your 6 stats, which are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. But we're going to go ahead, when we roll the stats, just to kind of streamline things a bit and make this a little bit easier, what we're going to do is we're going to roll 4d6, and we're going to drop the lowest dice, and that'll give us a good value between 3 and 18.
Are we re-rolling ones?
Let's not go ahead and re-roll ones this time, and we'll just go ahead and do straight rolls, and that'll give us a good idea. A lot of tables sometimes go for the re-rolling ones, so you have an average character. Some people even do re-rolling 1 and 2, but we'll go ahead and just do it straight roll this time, because that'll give us a wide range of stats to work with.
All right, so my first roll is 13.
Okay.
2, 5, and 6. My second roll, drop that 1, is a 5, 6, and 4, so I'm looking at 15.
Oh, that's good.
4, 6, and a 1, so a 11.
Okay.
And drop that 1, it looks like a 13.
13.
Drop the 1 for a 4, 4, and a 3 is an 11 again.
It's a pretty good character so far. Nice average stats with some higher ones.
And 4, 6, and a 3 puts me at 13.
Wow. Yeah, kind of an average character with a couple 15s, I think you said you had in there?
I had 1 15.
1 15.
But everything else is a 13 or 11.
Wow, yeah.
So, I mean,
so there's going to be something that the character
still
was
a
really
0,
good at.
though, right? 11s are zeros.
11s are zeros, but that 13 is going to be a +1. But at the same time, that kind of feels like a first level character in D20 system.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
All right. So
I'm fine with that.
So I would ask at this point, going forward with the character, what kind of concept you have for them?
Well, based on our discussion that we just had, and remember, audience, that I have a very limited knowledge of Babylon 5 as a whole. So trying to create a character that would fit in this world is a little difficult for me. Trying to... because I'm kind of just cramming on what I'm reading in the book and what I remember. I am going to build a Centauri, but my character type, and I'm trying to see if this is even really plausible with their social structure, but I was going to build, since I'm a little bit more familiar with Star Trek Deep Space Nine, I was going to try to build a Quark, the Ferengi merchant.
I think that would be definitely possible because both those races have kind of a leaning towards power accumulation as well as political
the Centauri,
maneuvering.
the Centauri, according to this, they delight in scheming and politicking, and Centauri society provides rich opportunities for both. So they're almost more diplomatic in the schmoozy political, not diplomatic, bureaucratic, I think might be the word that I'm looking for. I don't know. Yeah. They're more...
Well, they have almost a Renaissance European, or even if you're playing Seven Seas, Vodacce kind of sound to them, where they are very much a political power that they like to wear velvet.
Right. Well, they like names and ranks and titles, and most belong to one of the great noble houses. Those without such standing are often sold as slaves among the nobles, though a few find their way into the stars. So would being a merchant be...
It would be possible, because this is a society where that kind of job would be fulfilled, and it could be that, especially being a first level character and whatnot, perhaps you have gone to Babylon 5 to make your claim to fame, to start accumulating power, that you are doing basically what Quark was doing and using the position and the location as an opportunity to grow.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of my idea, is I'm going to be shooting for a merchant who likes to show himself as somebody who is able to get fine things, collect the finest art. Maybe not merchant is the right, maybe merchant, let's say maybe an art dealer or something like that, where they're dealing in the finer things, luxuries that the nobles of Centauri used to bedeck themselves or their homes or whatever to present themselves as more than maybe they really are, but part of their society is built that way. So
yeah, absolutely. So more than likely, this is going to be a character that is less physical. This is going to be a character that is more social, and so it comes down to a question of how are you going to do what you're going to do? Are you going to be intelligent? Like you've got one stat that is higher than anything else. Are you going to shoot it into your intelligence to where you try to outsmart people? Is it your wisdom where you have a greater amount of knowledge than other people? Or is it your charisma? Is your charisma your strong point where you try and manipulate or are inspiring?
Well, since looking at the stats or looking at the racial traits, Centauri already get a bump on their charisma. So I'll probably reserve my charisma for one of the lower numbers because I get a natural bump.
Okay.
And then save my big one in the event I get something that's knocked down.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start that part off.
Yeah, so I know my strength is going to be an 11 because I'm a weakie. My dexterity, I'll put my constitution at a 13.
Okay.
Since it's kind of my middle of the road number.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my intelligence at if I put another 13 in intelligence, then I'm going to I get to keep that. So I'll keep that there. It's my wisdom. If I put a 13 in wisdom, it's going to drop down to 11.
Okay.
So I don't want to put an 11 in there. I'm not even sure I want to put my 15 in there. Or if I want to keep my 15 as something I might. Do you think dexterity would be something that someone with a social...
It would help if you see yourself as ever getting into a confrontational situation, because dexterity is going to be your ability to avoid damage as well as do ranged damage, which is a big part of this universe.
Yeah, I kind of like the thought of my dex bumped up. Perhaps maybe I have... Now, this is my fantasy mythos kicking in, but perhaps I have a history and can pickpocket or something like that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no.
So I'll put a 15 in my dex, mark it off. I do get a +2 to my charisma, so if I put a 13 in there, I get the 15. That leaves me with an 11. Ooh, no. Do I want to do that? Let me take out that 13 in intelligence. I'm going to make that an 11. My wisdom will then be 11 because it's a -2. I would rather have everything at a...
Makes sense.
I don't know, that might be a bad move, but that's what I'm doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, that's one thing with the D20 system is know your strengths and play to them.
Yeah. Oh, do I have too many 11s in there? Wait a second. Did I do something dumb? Oh, I see. I did my math. All right, so I'm at strength 11, dexterity 15, constitution is a 13, intelligence is an 11. Do you think I should swap my constitution and intelligence? My only reason for having a little higher constitution was in certain situations, I'm assuming, and you can tell me if my opinion of constitution is a little skewed, but I kind of foresee a lot of perhaps imbibing and drinking, and I would like my character to not necessarily be as easily affected by small amounts of alcohol or even large amounts of alcohol.
Well, and that's one of those things where imbibing alcohol or anything of that nature, your constitution is going to come into play. It's going to affect your hit points as well, and it's going to affect your ability to deal with poisons.
Okay.
Then
I'm happy with my intelligence being a little lower, and I'll just...
Yeah. It's one of those things where it really comes down to the individual. A lot of people that play D20 more than I do, they say that you always want to put a good number in your constitution regardless of your character build.
Right.
I usually tend towards just doing an average number in there, but that's just me. I mean, it's always up to the person and how they are going to play the character.
Yeah. Okie dokie. I will go with that. So it says...
So now you have your racial things that'll add or subtract to it.
Right. And so I have the -2 in wisdom and the +2 in charisma. So that puts those stats at 11 and 15 respectively.
Okay.
So you said 11s or zeros?
11s or zeros.
Do we go ahead and do that now? Is it okay to start working on the mods now? Or
at this point in this system, they did not really make it to where you're going to get anything that's going to affect it.
It didn't look like it. So and a 15 is a 2?
A 15 will be a 2.
And a 13 is a +1?
+1.
All right. So I have 3 zeros, 2 +2s, and a +1.
Excellent. So now comes the fun part. I mean, we've got your character, we've got your race, and we have your class.
Right.
So the classes are, there's a small highlighted section at the end of the races that gives you the list of classes, or we can just go ahead and piece through.
Well, and this looks like it has favored classes.
Favored classes come into play if you're going to have a character that multi-classes.
Okay, so let me see if I
Should be
here.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. The 8 character classes available are Agent, Diplomat, Lurker, Officer, Scientist, Soldier, Telepath, or Worker.
Mm-hmm.
Not an agent.
No. Diplomat is a possibility.
Possibly.
Lurker is also a possibility based on, depending on what you're trying to do. I will say Diplomat would also probably give you a greater amount of resources at start, though, versus that.
Probably.
Telepath, definitely not.
No, I'm not a telepath or a worker or a soldier or a scientist nor an officer. But agent is a skilled operative in the employ of a corporation, government, or military organization who performs much of their dirty work. Only if I was, this was
like...
like...
agent at the crown kind of thing.
Perhaps, or I could even see kind of being like my business is my cover.
Oh yeah,
it's my face, but I'm actually gathering information, and it puts me in a place where I'm meeting and glad handing with a lot of people because I'm on this diplomatic space station. But I'm also, and so I have an opportunity to, when it refers to dirty work, I could commit espionage or assassinations, or
I guess it would also come down to possible differences in the skills that each group has, because this is an older D20 version. I know in 5th edition, they have made it to where almost everybody has access to the same skills to some extent. Mm-hmm. There are some that not everybody has. It all depends on where you put points. 3rd edition, they really hardline limited you to skills for your class.
Right.
And anything beyond that would cost double. If you wanted a skill that you normally wouldn't have, it was going to cost you double points.
What is the armadillo-looking race?
Quite honestly, I don't remember. There are so many. It's that.
Does it suffer from Star Wars, where it's just
Star Wars Cantina scene?
Just throw in a bunch of prosthetics and see what people pick up on.
Yep.
All right.
If they really like it, we'll create a backstory for it. After. Yep.
Let's go ahead. Does Diplomat fit? That's where I'm having a hard time. And this would be where I would say the system is very restrictive.
Yes.
Is it because Babylon 5 would not have place for merchants?
No, in fact, there is a location called the Zolico on Babylon 5, which is basically this gigantic market. And a lot of the scenes in the series take place there. In fact, there is a bar that is very much everything like Quark's bar.
Okay.
So, and
I guess he owned a bar, didn't he?
Yeah.
He wasn't necessarily just a merchant. But
and so it is a restrictive system, but again, this is the fun of D20, is that you can always pull in things from other systems that might fit better as long as the terms and use can be assimilated to some extent, and if you have a DM willing to work with you and whatnot. But so in this system, what I would say is that it might be better not to look at the terms as official titles of any sort, but look at them more as a behavior. Mm-hmm. I mean, does your character have an agent-like behavior, or does your character have more of a diplomat kind of behavior? Even though they might not be a diplomat of the government, is their business kind of that diplomat kind of thing?
Yeah.
That's where I would come at it from. If not, agent might also work, because agents also are deal makers and rule breakers.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to determine. Like, I'm reading the diplomat thing and seeing if what they're looking for. My thing is you're saying you can bring in this stuff from other places, you can tweak it.
But obviously,
you
we
can
don't
work
have
it.
that at the table.
Well, the purpose of this portion is, can we use the book to create the character that we want, that we think would fit in the setting? And at the moment, it feels like you can't unless you make some serious concessions. Let's see.
And this is...
Because the diplomat is purely looking for... I mean, it refers to like couriers and attaches and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so for class, I think I'm going to modify my concept a little bit, and I'm going to go with the agent. I got to find it again. Second, lots of page flipping.
Yeah, and I will say that about this book, especially when it comes to character creation, that's one of my peeves with some series out there, is that they put a ton of fluff at the opening of the book that the players don't always need, and it can really slow down character creation. But because they have put, a lot of games have put it right at the front, it makes it to where your players can come in, create their characters, and not have too many of the secrets that you might want to reveal to them in the game as the game goes on.
Right,
so I kind of like this layout.
Okay. See, my thing with the agent, I wouldn't necessarily, like, if we were actually playing this, I don't think I would want anybody to know that I was an agent.
Yeah.
I think I would rather they thought of me as a diplomat. But based on the wording of the diplomat, it feels very difficult to try to, I mean, it's it's very much, politics and stuff like that.
And that's where obviously the desire for more books comes along, because you get those other books coming out that'll end up having more classes and giving you more opportunities, and it creates more of a demand for the player.
But they never did any more books, correct?
Oh no, there are.
Oh, is that their whole
stack
Oh, okay.
of books from this company. Now I don't have all of them. I did get the Zolico book because I of course want to have the book that has all the items and equipment in it.
Oh, okay. Well, for the purpose of this, I'm gonna go with agent. I have it titled on my sheet as a luxuries dealer.
Excellent. Okay. So with the agent, if you're on the page, there should be a table.
There is.
Always with D20s. And so at first level, there should be a base attack. And the base attack is
my base attack bonus is a big whopping goose egg.
Which is interesting for an agent, because you would think that there would be something more at first level, but obviously this is not going to be the equivalent of the fighter, so they might be trying to think of it more as like,
It seems it's more, not necessarily covert, but, for instance, it says, in this capacity, agents may work as negotiators, representatives, spies, thieves, or assassins as required by their employer. So you really
somewhere between Bard and Rogue.
Yeah, so +0 on that.
And obviously there are going to be saving throws, which we can go ahead and kind of gloss over for the moment, because we're not going to be dealing with that part so much.
Okay.
But you should have other things that are going to come along at first level. Does it give you any character bonuses?
I get a special.
Okay.
The only additional column is special. It says security systems, which it says looks like is a class skill.
All right.
Or it's under the class skills header, and it says agents may use the search skill to locate security devices and systems when the task has a DC greater than 20.
Okay, so that is definitely a rogue-like talent, where kind of like in 3rd edition, the rogues could find traps. You can find all the things that are security systems going into a location for your team.
Right. Again, it feels kind of weird with my concept, but I'm going with it.
Yeah. And this is what we're trying to work through. The question is, can you make the character that you want using this system? So, all right. We have that, and then you should have, in the character write-up, there should be something that tells you how many skill points you should have.
Skill points at first level, 6+ intelligence modifier times 4. So my intelligence modifier is 0, so I have 24 skill points.
And there should be a skill list there. And
well, no.
No? Then more than likely it'll be at the front of the skills section.
Yeah, I think the skills...
Usually they have like a short write-up at the top of the class and say these are your class
skills.
Well,
I have that. I have my class skills. Is that what you meant?
Yes.
I thought you were... Because I think most of the skills they're pulling straight out of the D&D book.
Okay. But
some of them are different.
Some of them will be different.
Yeah, okay, there's the skills table. Okay.
There you go. And so it's important to pick out skills, obviously, that will better reflect your character. And because this is a D20 book rather than an OGL book, you might actually have all the skills written out.
I do.
In the book.
Yeah, on the skills table, which is about almost 20 pages later, most of them look the same as your standard D20 or your D&D or your Pathfinder. Computer use is obviously new. Concentration?
Concentration is your ability to maintain
I understand what it is, but I don't think concentration is a skill in Dungeons and Dragons.
Not in the editions that you've played. This is usually in 5th edition you all roll like a savings throw. In 3rd edition you could actually build up concentration as a skill for when say you're trying to cast a spell and somebody hits you with a sword.
Okay, yeah, in 5th ed you have to roll to see if you keep concentration, and it's a type of save.
Yeah, in 3rd edition they made it a skill which you had to buy up in addition to your save.
Okay, now they do have drive in here as opposed to ride. Read lips.
The one thing about 3rd edition is that it was super skill heavy.
So that was a skill in 3rd edition?
Read lips, yes.
Okay.
I mean, later on, you had pretty much only one skill that you needed in order to sense something.
Okay.
But back in 3rd edition, you had search, you had spot,
Yep.
And you had to listen.
Yep.
Each one of those was a separate skill, so you could be good at each one of those or not at one of those. I mean, it made it really interesting, but it also
you could hear really well or pick out something from
or find something.
Not be able to
maybe
see.
Because search is about like the static search for an object. Spot is looking for things at distance, things of that nature.
Okay. The other ones that I see that might be specifically new to this. Telepathy and technical. Would medical have been a...
Medical was not. Heal was the
heal
skill.
was the check. Okay, yeah, there's
Yeah.
no heal in this. But forgery, I assume that would have been a...
I'm not even certain, to be honest, because, I mean, it's been a while since I've done 3rd edition. There were a lot of, I mean, this is what a lot of people kind of griped about. When 3rd edition went to 4th edition, you lost a lot of skills. They combined a lot of skills in order to streamline the game. Now, when Pathfinder did it as well, they streamlined a lot, but they kind of gave a lot more explanation, and you really didn't feel like you were losing as much. And 5th edition kind of found like a balancing ground between those two concepts. And, I mean, it streamlines what you need to know. You have a certain thing, and you don't end up having to look up or waste skill points or wonder, because one of the big debates for everyone is it a spot check or is it a search check? What am I needing to do right now?
Okay. Yeah, no, it actually says that this skills table is the exhaustive list of the skills that they add that are described in this book and any from the player's handbook that are applicable. They do not allow use of any other skill that is not on this table. So, I mean, you don't want me to go through and pick all my skills for the...
Not really, but...
Let's see how bored we can make our listeners. It's me trying to pick skills.
But so 24 skill points, and the reason that's done was Pathfinder, your class skill, you get a +3 bump right off the bat to your skill, and that gives you a little bit of a bonus to say, hey, I'm trained in this. In this game, in D&D 3rd edition, you didn't get that bump. It was basically you get your attribute bonus plus however many points you put into it up to a maximum of 4 at first level.
Oh, okay.
And so you had to earn every last point, but 24 skill points, that also makes it very long and hard to do character creation.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, if my intelligence modifier had been anything else, I mean, it grows exponentially.
And so if you're playing like a really smart character, you're looking at, possibly up to 7 times 4, so 28 character points right off the bat, if not more. And so, it can make character creation take a long time at that era of gaming. Now, at the same time, versus a point-buy system, this is still faster.
Right.
But, you can see the positives and negatives of using the system right there.
Yeah. Sorry, my starting wealth is 1,200 credits.
That actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, 3d6 times 100. So 2 5s and a 2. All right, so what's after skills?
Well, usually with skills, we would look at your character's defense, we would look at your character's savings throws, but we really don't need to go that far in depth per se. But one of the things that is going to also always influence a character creation for the D20 system be feats.
Right, okay, let me...
And so this is, feats are the things that truly make a character special outside of its class.
Right.
And so with...
Oh, wow, I didn't even know. I didn't realize that. I found the languages part. There are 3 different forms of Minbari. Minbari Dark, Minbari Gray, and Minbari Light.
Actually, don't even remember all
It says Minbari Dark, Feek, is the language of the warrior caste. Minbari Gray is Adrento, language of the religious caste, and Minbari Light is Lenna, language of the worker caste.
Wow, I had completely forgotten about the caste system in that, because they only go to Minbari a few times in the series to where you actually interact with all the different groups.
Right. Okay, so let me see here. So that's skill. So then, it goes straight into feats in the same chapter.
And so with your vision of doing an agent, but a character that is a dealer of different things, this would be the point to find, if you couldn't get a class that did that, this would be the point to find if you can do that through feats. Because, again, 3rd edition didn't have backgrounds.
Right.
So, I mean, Pathfinder, you have your different traits that can build up your character towards a certain goal. And in 5th edition D&D, you have a background that would give kind of a backstory to your character, to where you could say this is what they did or this is what they do. And in 3rd edition, in games based off the D20 module, it all comes down to feats. So do you see any feats in there that kind of capture
and how many,
you?
how many do I get, does it say?
You're first level and you're not human, so you get 1.
Okay. Yeah, this has the same kind of line. It's the following feats from Chapter 5 of the Player's Handbook are used without change within the Babylon 5 role-playing game. So they list all those. So it's got some of the familiar ones like Far Shot, Quick Draw, Rapid Shot, Run, 2-weapon fighting, weapon focus, Improved Trip, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, but it's got a massive list of feats, including racial feats and telepath feats. Telepath feats are out.
Yeah.
Racial feats, maybe. It depends on if I find any that apply specifically to Centauri, and I kind of doubt it.
Out at you.
Well, one of as far as feats that might have jumped out at me, contact. I was going to look it up and see what that meant.
So this again is going to be one of the fallbacks or the issues that you're going to have with a D20 game, especially dealing with feats, is that it comes down to what kind of DM you have. It's character creation. A lot of times you can justify a lot of stuff. And if you have a good DM that is interested in the story side of stuff, he might be able to say or look at you and say, okay, based on your character backstory and everything else, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have this business and you're going to have recently set up shop and here's all these things. And we'll go ahead and go at it from this angle. But without that feat, some of the more hard-edged kind of GMs out there, they will instead turn around and say, well, if it's not on the paper, you don't have it.
I could, as a Centauri, I could have the feat of prehensile tentacles.
That's always fun.
I'd have to be a male, which I'd already anticipated, but it just made me laugh. But no, contact, I think, is probably where I would lean for my first one, just because you know the value of friends and favors, and to have cultivated one particular relationship in order to provide you with great benefits. And it requires a charisma 15 plus, and so I'm already sitting there. But yeah, there were a couple noble birth, but I wasn't going to go with that one.
But so kind of getting in there and finding a feat that almost works to some extent, at least gives you a backstory. And I myself, I'm a story-based. I would say, okay, you have a shop. Here's what we're going to do with it.
Right.
And that would be something you work out with me. But like I said, and you know DMs who are like that, where they are very much, if it's not on the paper, you don't have it.
Right.
And that's unfortunately a good point to close out on with the D20 system with this, after character creation. And that is, does the Babylon 5 system set out to do, do you feel like you could make a character based on the source material?
With my limited knowledge, within reason.
And I myself, I would say, I would actually say no. And the reason I would say no is based on the character that you're going to make right off the bat in this book is going to be a character that I would consider a red shirt. Using the Star Trek term, but not using it as the joke, as the cannon fodder. I'm saying that this is the character that is in the background. In Star Trek, there is Captain Kirk on the bridge, and then you've got all these other people that are nameless characters that seem to wander by and do their own thing and are part of the crew, granted, but they're not part of the show. Babylon 5 had the same thing with Garibaldi, with Ivanova, and these characters, they were the big wigs and they were the focus of the show, and there were all these people that worked around them and under them, but you really didn't get their story. The story was always about these bigger people. And so this game comes along, and D20 system, you're making a first level character that would not be the principal characters of the show. Yes, you're playing in the universe. Yes, you're getting this opportunity to be a part of it, but you are not the principal character.
Right.
Now, I think there are greater systems that do this better. Obviously, the more cinematic style systems that are coming out now. I could see something based off of something like by John Wick, or the 2D20 system that Modiphius is now using, where, Modiphius, right off the bat in the new Star Trek games, you can play the captain, you can play the doctor, you can play the security specialist who leads everybody. You're playing the crew that everybody looks up to.
Right, and your NPCs, you can call on essentially first level red shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
To accompany you as part of the system.
And you have a ship. In this game, like I said, there are those GMs who are like, if it's not on the paper, you don't have it.
Yeah.
What do you have? And so that's probably the drawback of the D20 system and this system. Now, we've done a little research on it, and we have heard other people say that there are issues with the game where the stats that you get for the races don't really match up.
Right.
And I kind of wonder about that, because the stars of Babylon 5 were not the normal kind of characters for their race.
Right. They were kind of exceptions to the rules.
Yeah. You had the Centauri leader, Molari, who is the only character that is, he's like the super shiftiest, most amazing politician in his race, the way he comes off. He's the only one with his accent in the entire show. Nobody else ever shows up with the same accent he has. Which, looking at Star Trek and the leader of Spock's race with T'Pau, she again doesn't have the same accent as Spock, but she's their leader. So maybe it's one of those things where, like an entire planet, they're going to always be different accents.
We just watched the episode where Spock goes through Ponfar, but
there's the.
I always either say I flip it. Sometimes I'll say Fonpar.
But there's the Narnam Baster, and he's actually really diplomatic for his race. You look at the rest of his race, and they want blood. They want to just
according to the book,
else.
Their blood rage is their racial feat.
But he's more of a politician and likes to work behind the scenes and pull strings. And that's very atypical for his race. Mm-hmm. And then you have what's the race that Delenn is part of?
The Minbari.
Yeah, the Minbari. And she is definitely an atypical Minbari. She even grows hair halfway through the series or something like that. So it's one of those things where maybe to some extent a lot of the races were given kind of stereotypes based on the overall image. Mm-hmm. But you really don't feel like the races in here stand for the characters you know.
Yeah, the argument that I had read when we were doing some research was specifically that based on the show, one of the focuses was the Minbari racial traits and penalties. In specific, they felt that they focused too much on the Minbari being xenophobic, where this individual, the original poster, felt that like Delenn and other people that you see commonly on the show,
Delenn was not
could be very charismatic and shouldn't have to hold to that -2 penalty on charisma.
Yeah, in fact, the only ones that were really truly xenophobic were the warrior caste. So that's that looking back at it in my mind. Now, of course, whenever we do our little Babylon 5 thing down the road, maybe I'll look at it a little bit more, but that's what I remember.
That's one thing. I would be interested, after we watch Babylon 5 again, to look at this book again and kind of see... Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to say that it doesn't have the spirit of the show, which is what the gentleman that I read online was kind of his opinion was it didn't feel like it captured the spirit of the show. I'm not going to go out and say that because J. Michael Straczynski was very active in the development of this book, and it's his mind baby. So, maybe the show didn't capture his vision entirely. I think it did. I'm not saying it didn't, but if you're having trouble finding the spirit of the show in the book, and apparently there was a second edition that we do not have. Yeah. And apparently in the second edition they did tweak some things and made people a little bit happier. But maybe that was it. Maybe it was just a bad publish. Something got pushed out. But I mean, Matthew Sprange was the guy who wrote the system itself. J. Michael Straczynski gave his blessing.
That's pretty much the idea. It is good. I will say I would not have bought it if I didn't like it. And it definitely captures the Babylon 5 mythos.
Okay.
You definitely get the idea that, yes, you are in the Babylon 5 universe. Yes, you have all this that you can work within. But does it capture the show? Not really.
Okay.
And so for an enterprising GM, maybe you can always bump up the character level a little bit more. Maybe level 5 or level 10. And that way the characters feel a little bit more in line with everything.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that is the end of our first follow-up show with character creation for Babylon 5. We would like to thank everyone for listening, and of course Nerds Domain for giving us support and everything. We hope to see you back for the next one. Thank you very much.
This has been a production of the Southgate Media Group. For more podcasts like this one, head over to southgatemediagroup.com.